It was meant to be nothing more than another office celebration, an easygoing night to honor my wife's success on her latest project. She had spent months pouring herself into that campaign, and I couldn't have been prouder. I wanted to be there, not just as her husband, but as her loudest cheerleader. From the moment we walked in, the atmosphere thrummed with energy. Soft music pulsed in the background, glasses clinked, and laughter rippled from one corner to another. She was glowing, completely in her element, moving gracefully from one conversation to the next, hugging, shaking hands, and smiling like a queen surrounded by her court. Then I noticed him. Jordan. Tall, sharply dressed, with that polished charm that feels just a little too intentional. When he hugged her, it was tighter than necessary, lingering longer than it should. When she introduced us, he gave me nothing more than a lazy nod, his chin lifting slightly before his gaze drifted right back to her, as though I were invisible. At first, I told myself I was reading too much into it. Maybe he was just overly friendly. But then came the casual touches on her shoulder, the whispered comments close to her ear, the way they shared private laughs while stealing glances at me. It wasn't subtle, it was staged. And I was the target audience. As we moved through the crowd, Jordan somehow managed to insert himself into every conversation we had. He tossed out clever lines, slipped in playful digs. At one point he smirked and said, "I don't know how you keep up with her, man." Later he chuckled to the group, "Honestly, I think I spend more time with her than you do." The laughter that followed was thin and uneasy. I didn't join in. I didn't react. I simply observed. Then someone, probably riding the high of a few too many drinks, suggested a game of truth or dare. I wasn't in the mood, but my wife nudged me with an eager smile. "Come on," she whispered, "just for fun." So I agreed. Jordan jumped in first, deliberately choosing the seat directly across from me. His eyes locked on mine as he grinned. "I'll take a dare," he said, leaning forward. "I dare you to show us how tough you really are. You and me, arm wrestle. Right here, right now." The noise in the room dropped instantly. Conversations halted. There was a tension in the air that went beyond party games. Everyone understood what was really happening. I glanced at my wife. Her face was tense, but she said nothing. I met Jordan's gaze, nodded, and said calmly, "All right, let's do it." We cleared a spot on the nearest table. People crowded around. The light above us suddenly felt sharper, more focused. This wasn't a bit of harmless fun, this was a statement. Our hands locked. His grip was firm, his smirk dripping with confidence. He looked at me like the outcome was already decided. What he didn't know was that I'd been training for years, not for show, but for discipline, for myself. He came at me hard, trying to overpower me immediately. I didn't budge. I held him steady, unmoving, like iron under pressure. Then, slowly, I began to push back. Inch by inch, his wrist bent, his smirk faltered, and strain replaced his smugness. In one controlled motion, I slammed his hand onto the table. Gasps, a few cheers, and scattered laughter filled the air. Jordan pulled back, rubbing his wrist, forcing a grin. "Guess I wasn't ready for that," he muttered, avoiding my eyes now. I leaned back in my seat, exhaling slowly. I wasn't boastful, just satisfied. I hadn't yelled, hadn't played his game with words. I'd answered his challenge in silence. When I looked at my wife, there was something different in her eyes. Not just surprise, but a quiet admiration, as though she'd remembered a part of me she'd overlooked. She stayed close after that, her hand finding mine more often, her laughter warmer, more present. Jordan kept his distance for the rest of the night. He never looked at me again. He didn't have to. The point had been made. On the way out, the cool night air wrapped around us. She squeezed my hand and whispered, "You didn't have to do that, but I'm glad you did." I kissed her forehead with a small smile. Some things don't need explanations. Some moments speak for themselves. That night taught me something no stretch of silence ever could. Respect isn't always maintained by patience. Sometimes it must be reclaimed, calmly, firmly, and without apology. Jordan learned his boundaries. My wife remembered mine.